All right, so I know we are in English class, but before we talk about books today, I actually want us to talk about buildings. So, does anybody here have maybe your parents or family friends who work in construction and home renovation type of things? Okay, there's a few of us. Awesome. My dad actually he worked with a business that renewed wood doors for a long time, and before that, he worked with painters and a company called Mr. Handyman. So, um, yeah, so that means some of us might already know this, but this is what the inside of a house looks like. Inside the walls of every house and building, it looks like this with these wooden beams that are called studs that kind of provide the outline or the structure for the house. And it does look like a house, right? It's the right shape and everything, but it's not very functional, is it? Because of that, on top of that framework or structure, we add walls, ceilings, and windows like this. And now this really looks like a house, right? It does the job a house is supposed to do. It keeps us all sheltered and safe. But even this isn't the whole story. I mean, look around this classroom. It's not just walls and windows, right? No, I didn't want some boring, generic classroom for us to sit in. So I went out and bought some cozy lights and artwork and posters, things to hang on the wall to make it my own space and make it more comfortable for us, just like we decorate our homes. But what the heck does this have to do with English? Great question. All right, let's all be honest here. Now, raise your hand if you've ever used SparkNotes or Google to do the reading that a teacher has assigned, right? I'm sure we've never done that for my class, but maybe for other people. Now, doing that will give you the bullet points of what happened, right? It'll give you kind of just a quick summary, but it's not going to tell you the whole story. It's really just the bare bones, sort of like this, right? If you'd read the story, you would get something a bit more like this. You'd get all the details and the characters' personalities, the language, and all the good stuff that the author chose to include. And that is a huge part of reading, is looking at what the author has explicitly said and trying to figure out what they want us to think. But authors say a lot implicitly too. Real quick, can anybody explain the difference between explicit and implicit for us? That's right. To say something explicitly is to say it very clearly and specifically with a very clear meaning. And to say something implicitly is to say it indirectly and not very plainly, leaving room for interpretation. Like if I say, if you don't do what I want, I'm going to cut your head off. That's very violent, but very clear. You know exactly what I'm going to do and why. But if I say, if you don't do what I want, you'll be sorry, that's very vague and implicit, and it means that you have to imagine what I might do, which could potentially be a lot scarier. Authors do the same thing. Sometimes they say things explicitly, but other times they're very vague. They don't do this to confuse us, though. They do it because they want to invite us into the story. They want us to use our own experiences and points of view to create our own version of the story and kind of decorate it in our own way. So, now we are going to take a look at a short story called The Chaser by John Collier. As we read in class, I want you to keep two lists as you go through. One of explicit or specific details that the author includes that you think are important to your interpretation of the story, and another list of implicit or vague details that the author mentions that lead you to use your own imagination to create or predict meaning in the story. We can work together in small groups at first, and then this will be our homework.